Suspended bass. It happens a lot in the fall. They're moving around the lake. What do you need to do? Well, we're here to tackle that task today. And we got a few lures that are gonna be good for covering water and help you catch more suspended bass. Fall is here. We've got suspended bass that are moving around the lake. The fall's really the time of year where they start to move away from your typical cover. You think of bass living on, stumps and grass lines and docks and things like that. They'll really just get their blinders on and start targeting shad. It's nature's way when the water starts cooling down to let them know they need to start feeding up, getting ready for the winter. The females, they start building up their eggs, and shad are a really easy food source for them. So we're going to target some suspended bass here today, and we've got a few baits that are going to make our life a little bit easier for searching for these suspended bass. First thing I like to do is just look for surface activity. Where am I seeing shad at the surface? You can see little flutters on the water, little ripples, and then occasionally you'll see bass come up and hit them. You'll see those splashes. And one of the easy ways to target those fish, cover a lot of water, is with a lipless crankbait, like this lipless crankbait. This is obviously very representative of shad that are running around. It's easy to cast. One of the really nice things about this bait, you'll notice it in the water, it has a very slow sink, almost a suspending effect. So if you have bass that are chasing it, almost like a square bill crankbait, you're reeling it, the fish are following it, you stop it, and they'll run right into it. So that's what makes this bait really effective. Normally with a lipless crankbait, I'm doing a constant just pump, retrieve. You can do the same thing with this IMA. But one of the nice things is you can just stop it. You can make it suspend like a square bill or any other crankbait. So I like to use a high speed gear ratio reel, something around 7 to 7.5 foot, medium to medium heavy rod, and then fluorocarbon line. But a high speed gear ratio reel is going to help you retrieve this thing quickly, and I like to kick it up a notch in the fall because the water temperatures are very conducive for fish to be active. When the water's in the 70s, the high 60s, that's when fish are at their most active. They can swim the fastest, chase down prey, and the shad are at their most active too. So you can really represent those shad very well with the high speed gear ratio reel. It's unlike the spring where you have to slow down a little bit. You can just crank it up and go. Got this lunker hunt hatch spin tied on. This is a great bait to get down there to bass that are below the surface. You see surface activity, the fish come up, they go down. Sometimes they may be 20, 30 feet down. This is a really good bait to hit those fish when they're going deep. And you need something that goes deeper than a deep diving crankbait. And the nice thing is it represents the small baitfish that they're chasing. Shad will usually spawn a couple times a year, and during the fall they have that spawn and they reproduce and they make these small little baitfish. And even the big bass will get locked in on chasing small baitfish. So when you look at the profile of this bait and the blade size, it's very representative of those small baitfish, which is good. I try to cast into or past the school of fish, let it sink to the bottom, and then I'll reel it up and I'll let it sink again. If the fish are close to the bottom, if I think they're suspended like midway through the water column, I'll just do a steady, slow retrieve, and that way that bait is coming up through the water column into those fish. But if they're close to the bottom, you want it to kind of do a yo-yo pattern, and that's when you just want to reel a few times, 4 or 5 cranks, let it drop, 4 or 5 cranks, let it drop. Just keep your rod out, at a sideways angle, and that way when the fish takes it, you can set the hook up and catch the fish. When I'm fishing for suspended bass, I'm really looking for the shad mainly. That's what they're really gonna hang around. If you think about like a bush or a grass line or something like that, you can literally think of shad as that type of cover when you're talking about suspended fish. They're just gonna hang on that, they're gonna follow that, sometimes all day. They almost become like a pelagic species like you think of in the ocean chasing bait. And one of my favorite baits to use is something like this cane thumper. White colors are always good, by the way, because they represent those shad. But this flashbang, that little blade on there, with that cane thumper, you can throw it right up into tires, right up into floating docks. You don't have to worry about getting that hung up where a treble hook bait might get hung up. So it's really a good way to just parallel those things like tires and marinas, anything that's floating out there, and just reel it just a few feet under the surface where those bass are suspended. Now we're on a lake that has largemouth, smallmouth, and spotted bass, so you may catch either one of those. Beautiful fish right there. I was throwing that flashbang with the cane thumper on it, just on this bank, and targeting those suspended fish. You know, even though we're sitting in 20 feet of water, throwing up close to the bank, reeling it over, this fish hit it in about 10 feet. So could have been anywhere. Could have been on the bottom, could have been just suspended, you know, in the middle water column. Don't really know, but I was reeling this thing about 2 feet under the surface, so it came all the way up to the top. Very nice fish. So fishing for suspended bass, it can be tricky sometimes, but if you follow these tips and tricks, follow those shad, I think you're gonna find yourself catching a lot of fish in the fall. So make sure to go check out more tips and tricks at mysterytacklebox.com, or subscribe to the Mystery Tackle Box YouTube channel right here, and we'll see you at the next video.